Tennessee This Week from WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Bo Williams. Glad you're with us. We're getting our first opportunity to go one-on-one with Chief Paul Noel since he had to discipline officers in his department within the first 2 months on the job. Now, he fired Lieutenant Lance Earlywine and suspended Captain Don Jones. It's the fallout from an internal affairs investigation finding that Earlywine lied about a report of a hostile workplace environment, while Jones didn't follow the rules on handling the claim. The week before that, 2 officers, Adam Parnell and John Morris, had their patrol duties suspended after they were arrested on DUI charges. 6 on your side's Elizabeth Kubel talked with Chief Noel about making such tough calls so early.
Okay, so I want to take some time and reflect on a couple of decisions from the past few weeks. Also, we'll look ahead too, because I know that's important as well. But starting with looking back, you recently made some big decisions, one of them being the firing of a veteran lieutenant, the suspension of a captain. Walk me through how you made those decisions, Chief.
Sure. So, many of those cases, there were cases from before I got here, and, the case that you're referencing is, several years old. And, as soon as I was hired, I started the process of reviewing old internal affairs cases. And, looking at the case, the investigator made a recommendation that the lieutenant was sustained on a truthfulness allegation. And, with truthfulness, there's only one outcome that could come from that. Once you lose your credibility, it's very difficult to work in this profession. So, we just moving forward on these cases, and just trying to get past some of the past cases that were left prior to my arrival.
Mm-hmm. And why did you think that that was the appropriate punishment for this one?
So, like I said, like with truthfulness, there's only one penalty for truthfulness. Once you lose your credibility in this profession, then it's very difficult to testify in court, and it's almost impossible to gain that credibility back in law enforcement. So, it's pretty much standard practice, now across the country, that if you're, sustained for truthfulness and that's affirmed, then the only penalty is to be terminated.
You mentioned, too, that this was obviously before you came on here as chief, and that you're kind of going back and reviewing, looking at old cases. Are there any others that are top of mind for you to go back and reflect on? So
there's a few old cases that we're moving through right now and doing disciplinary hearings on. But really, more importantly, what we're really looking to do now is move forward. Internal affairs was shifted under Assistant Chief Mark Fortner, so Chief Fortner could have to spend, to give his full attention to, not only moving the old internal affairs cases forward, but more importantly, making sure that the new cases that generate are processed as quickly as possible. And that's something when I met with the lieutenants, met with the captains, met with the command staff, people here have said that internal affairs cases have moved too slowly in the past. And looking at the timelines of some old cases, they have moved rather slowly. So, I've charged, Assistant Chief Fortner with not only speeding up that process, but making sure the quality of our investigations and the conclusions that we reach are the most appropriate.
Have you filled that veteran lieutenant's position, or know who you want to fill it with?
So right now we're in the process of testing for captain, lieutenant, and we're going to be testing for sergeant very soon. So we'll have some promotional registers before the end of the year. So we'll have the opportunities to promote captains, lieutenants, and sergeants before the end of the year, which will give us the ability to fill those positions.
Mm-hmm. Another big shock recently to the department, not 1 but 2 officers arrested with a DUI. You put out a statement almost immediately saying that you were furious.
So look, that was certainly very unfortunate. Look, we expect as police leaders and as members of this community, we expect more of our police officers. And if we ask police officers to uphold the law, then we need to make sure, if we ask police officers to enforce the law, we need to make sure they uphold the law as well. So, it's something that was very unfortunate, but, those officers will face the appropriate disciplinary action, and as an agency, we're going to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Where do the cases with those 2 stand?
So right now they are, still in internal affairs, but the criminal charges against them have to be processed first before we can move forward on administrative investigations.
The big theme here is moving forward, so let's move forward now. How do you plan to fill open positions and to also develop these leaders who are good moral, ethical leaders within KPD? Are they coming from internally or coming from outside the department?
So let's start with the deputy chiefs first. So we have 2 open deputy chiefs positions. And once we have a captain's register and a lieutenant's register, so we can promote from those positions, then we're going to start looking to fill those 2 open deputy chief positions. And look, I'm not taking anything off the table. I really want to be able to promote from inside this organization, but I'm not going to limit myself to to just candidates from inside. We have the potential to look outside as well, and I'm going to explore all of those options. But let me just be clear, I really do want to promote from inside this organization, and I'm going to be looking for people to join our team to lead this organization, but to really develop the team concept. I don't necessarily think that we need a superstar to come in and be like to carry this weight themselves. This is a team process, and we're going to look to build a team and support that team moving forward. That's really going to be what we're going to be looking for in this organization is the team concept.
Violent crime, I know that was a major priority for you. Right when you came in, you said this is one of the things you wanted to tackle. We have seen shootings, homicides recently. What are your plans specifically to target and to tackle that violent crime?
Sure. So let me say this first. So we have seen recently in the last few weeks some homicides happen within the city of Knoxville. But overall this year homicides are down. This year, 26 compared to 19, and we've solved 12 of our 19 homicides so far this year for a solve rate of 63%, which is slightly above the national average for cities our size. So, right now, we're in a good place. We certainly could do better. Our CERT team has been doing amazing work in our community, getting out and not only building strong relationships with the community, but identifying individuals that are involved in these crimes and helping our investigators in our criminal investigations division to solve those cases. So again, it's a team approach, right? Patrol, CERT, and our criminal investigations division, but working with the community as well. This is something we can't do alone. Our investigators don't have a crystal ball that they can look in to see who committed these crimes. We need help from the community. So this is truly a partnership, not only across KPD, but with the community as well to reduce violence in our city.
And I'm sure getting that message out too about don't be afraid to speak to officers, like you can be and remain anonymous.
Absolutely. So, if you have information on a crime, not only you could call KPD, but you could also call East Tennessee Crime Stoppers as well and pass that information on to us without leaving your name. And it really does help us solve those crimes.
It has been, what, a little over a month now?
It's been like 7 weeks.
7 weeks. Okay, a very busy, active 7 weeks for you.
It has.
Do you feel like you're getting your footing more, kind of understanding the department, the city a little bit more?
Absolutely. So, like we talked earlier about this, I'm going to about 2 community meetings an evening. I'm spending a lot of time in the community, even on the weekend when I'm off, and I'm meeting people. People are stopping me and talking to me. The community here in Knoxville has been overwhelmingly supportive, and I've been meeting internally with the men and women of the Knoxville Police Department as well. I've already met with the deputy chiefs. I've already met with the captains. I'm almost finished meeting with the lieutenants. Now I'm starting the process of meeting with the sergeants and the officers and the civilian employees as well. So everyone here is not only getting the opportunity to see me, but sit down and speak to me. I'm going to roll calls. I've been going to roll calls over and over. I'm going to ride in a patrol car with one 12-hour shift every 2 months, so I can really see the world through the eyes of a police officer. So I'm really immersing myself internally in the organization, learning as much as I can about it. So I am getting my feet under me now, and I have a really good feeling for this department and the community.
That's right. I remember you saying how important it was for you to either meet one-on-one or in small groups with every single employee of this department. I'm sure some of what you guys talk about, of course, is confidential, but what you can share, what has been their feedback that they want you to hear? Sure.
So, people, a lot has been said about my message with accountability, but, when I speak to the employees, they want accountability. Right, and accountability does not mean that discipline is going to be heavy-handed, that discipline is going to be excessive. But I think everyone here and in most organizations, they want to know what the rules are, and they want to know what standard they're going to be held to, and that they have no problem following that standard, but setting that standard. So that's something that I've been speaking to them a lot about. And the other thing is a vision. I think, we probably lacked a little bit of a vision before. So, you can't get to your destination if you don't know where you're going. So we're in the process now of setting that vision, which is revolving around, focusing on violent crime, property crimes, public order crimes, building a very strong culture within this organization and building a strong sense of community partnerships as well. When I've been going to community meetings, I've been telling people that going to a community meeting is not community policing. That's simply where we meet people to make the connections, to start the relationship, to build that community policing. That's what community policing is, building those relationships and working closely with members of the community to problem solve and to create safe public spaces, all throughout our city. That's what community policing is. So setting that culture, setting that example, and seeing that go through our organization is our long-term vision here.
Mm-hmm. I remember, too, I asked you this when we were talking on week 1 on the job, and I said, what's your assessment of KPD? Has it changed at all now on week 7? What is your assessment of this department now?
So my assessment is this, I've been saying this at every community meeting I go to, every single meeting I go to. This is a good department. It's staffed with some amazing men and women who have dedicated their lives to serving the Knoxville community, and I am proud to have joined this organization. I'm very impressed with the professionalism of the Knoxville Police Department, and I'm so excited to be here and work to move it forward, enhance it, and make it better. But I just want to be clear, this is, some people in the media have been talking about, this being, like rebuilding the Knoxville Police Department. This is absolutely not the case. This is making the Knoxville Police Department better and enhancing the Knoxville Police Department. This is a very, very good department, staffed with a core group of dedicated men and women.
Mm-hmm. Are there any, so we have seen big decisions from you recently, even within the last 7 weeks. Are there any other big decisions on the horizon, anything big that we can expect from you now moving forward?
I don't necessarily say there's anything big, but, we are looking at how we assign our police officers by beat and by geographical area. So we may have some changes coming with that in the next couple of months. We'll probably, if we do make those changes, we'll align that when we promote in, September or October. And what that's going to do is just make sure that we have the most efficient deployment possible when we put our police officers out there on the street, and making sure that we have a good ratio of supervisors per police officers. That's something we're looking at right now. And of course, we're looking at all of our policies and going through our policies, improving our policies, and enhancing our policies right now.
Still to come, our panel of pundits is coming up next. You're watching Tennessee This Week on WATE, 6 on your side. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. I'm Bo Williams, political analyst George Corda, and political contributor Courtney Piper joining us right now. Guys, great to have you.
Thank you.
We're going to start things off by talking about the new chief of police. He recently sat down with our Elizabeth Kubel. He's been talking about the first 7 weeks. It's been an eventful 7 weeks for him. George, I want to get your thoughts first. From what you heard, some of the actions he's had to take, suspensions, firings. Is he handling everything the way that you think it should be handled?
Well, I had the opportunity to work with a couple of police chiefs when I was the public affairs director for the city of Knoxville. And I think starting out, he's doing what you need to do. And with respect to firing a couple of folks, there's sort of a way of approaching this that if you, figuratively speaking, roll a couple of heads out the door, it concentrates everyone else's attention remarkably. And so there's a new chief in town, and he establishing himself and his leadership style so that everybody can understand what's expected of them and how it is expected of them. Now, he's setting some extraordinarily high standards, because you get to there are times when the argument is whether somebody told the truth or not, but is there some possible interpretation of it that is true or untrue or something? And he'll run into that as chief. He's going to be asked some really tough questions over the period of time. But overall, I was pretty impressed with his demeanor and the things he said, and I think he's doing what you have to do right now. As time rolls on, we'll find out the degree to which to which it all works.
Yeah. Cordy, I know you talked a little bit about this last week, but kind of get your thoughts again after seeing the interview. You still have the same feelings, and he also talked about moving forward and what he's been doing within the department, meeting with employees, getting out in the community as well. Just kind of your impressions.
The interview reinforced my first impression of him, which is he is a no-nonsense kind of guy, and that's his leadership style. It seems like he is doing and saying all the right things in terms of coming inside into this community from being outside. The way that he is prioritizing meeting the community and meeting all members of his staff is a really, really great first start. I liked hearing what he was saying about the movement of internal investigations, that they need to be faster, and he is demanding that they are faster with even more quality into those internal investigations. So if he continues on this track, I think, it will be really great for Knoxville, and he will be able to address and resolve some of the issues that have been plaguing KPD.
I'll tell you, we're going to go to another topic right now, the ballpark. A lot of people talking about this multi-use stadium coming into downtown. It started around $65 million, then it bumped up to 80. We're seeing things being scaled back now to get this thing on track for a 2025 opening. Courtney, when you see all of this happening and the adjustments being made, what kind of things are running through your mind?
At first, when I heard that they were making adjustments, my mind immediately went to this stadium, this complex was supposed to have this really big economic impact. And the result of the pandemic is things are just costing more flat out. My husband and I added on to our house, and the prices and the budgets of things increased exponentially from when we first got our estimates. That's just the state of where we are right now. And, do we want to cut off our nose to spite our face with this complex? But then I heard some of the things that they were considering to reduce the scope of the project, one of which being they weren't going to build over First Creek. Right. And then everybody had this epiphany that, I had this iconic element to the stadium complex. Well, isn't that something that you should have thought about in the beginning? So it seems like the cuts that they are thinking about are really good quality cuts that maybe should have been thought about in the beginning stages of the project.
Yeah. George, you kind of go along with that as well?
Well, it depends to what degree there was stuff in there that they knew was things they wanted or would like to do, but could take out without pain, because this inflationary spike we're on, a few months ago, we were being told it was transitory. Now the Federal Reserve is digging in for the long haul with interest rate increases. And the basic definition of inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. And until that balances out to a better degree, we're gonna be stuck with this. And hopefully the federal government will stop pumping trillions of dollars into the economy, so that will enable a quicker means of getting to a point where there's a better equilibrium. But I asked back when this was first approved, I go, what happens if the prices change? What happens if because at the time, it was a year or so ago that there was a big spike in construction materials. Mm-hmm. So this isn't new. And I would be surprised if there weren't going to be some more things trimmed off as time passes.
All right. I tell you what, you kind of touched on the economy there, George. We're going to talk about that when we come back right after the break. Back to Tennessee this week. We want to shift our focus a little bit. We touched on it in the last segment, but we want to talk about the U.S. economy. And of course, the big question is, are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? Who's to blame? Courtney, I'm going to start with you on this one. Your thoughts. A lot of different numbers have been coming out. We saw the Fed make some moves. What are your thoughts right now where we stand?
Well, it certainly seems like we are headed in that direction. President Biden had a giant mess to clean up on his hands. And when he first took office, he started the fastest economic recovery. We had record job growth, we had record new business startups, there was big cuts to the deficit, record corporate profits, which is still maintaining. There are still record corporate profits. So what this means is that when we're looking at inflation, we also have to look at what some economists have been terming greedflation. If corporations are making these huge profits, why are the costs of goods increasing so significantly, or the size of those products shrinking and we're paying the same amount of money? So There's lots of factors at play here when you're talking about the R word, recession. I know that we have had decreases in our GDP, but we have had steady job growth, corporate profits, all those other indicators. So, time will tell.
Yeah, and that kind of seems to be the consensus from some people we're hearing from, some economists. But George, I know you got a smile on your face, so I want you to weigh in on this. Are we in a recession? Are we headed that direction?
Well, the definition of a recession has traditionally been 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth, and we've had 2 straight quarters. And now
no, we haven't had 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth. It's just gone down.
Minus 1.6 and minus 0.9 are minuses. They are not positive. And as a result, all of a sudden now, the definition is changing. Well, it doesn't matter what the definition is, what the eggheads want to talk about. Heck, I was reading a story today that one of Biden's chief economic advisors in 2019 was saying the definition of a recession is when you have 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth. But now that they're moving that goal line, it doesn't matter. What matters is how the American people feel about what's going on. And right now, Biden's approval ratings in terms of handling the economy are down around 30%. And the idea, here's what happened. We shut down the economy. We shut it down artificially over COVID. And people were sent home, and some people lost their jobs, and it was basically nothing or very little for a while. Then we started back up. People started to get rehired. Oh, look, record job growth. No, it's not. You're just replacing the people that you let go before, and we don't have enough of them now. Look, the reality is this. We've got high inflation. We've got the highest gas prices we've ever had. They're dropping down a little bit. Why are they dropping down? Not because of anything the administration's doing, because there's a global slowdown in growth going on, pretty much led by the United States. So look, it doesn't matter what Joe Biden says or anybody says. The American people are feeling it. They're feeling it at their dinner tables, in their cars, and everywhere they go. And that's the basis on which most will make their decisions.
Courtney? Thoughts after listening to George?
It can be frustrating to think about how Democrats consistently since 2001, the early 2000s, have inherited these absolutely foul economies from Republicans, and then it's the Democrats'
Courtney, I have to ask you a question. Are you saying we should not have shut down? Are you saying we should not have shut down for COVID?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Well, you're saying the shutdown
but our economy,
caused
George,
the problem.
Let me finish. Even before the pandemic, our economy was tilting towards a recession. Economists were saying a recession is coming, primarily because President Trump doubled our deficit. He doubled our deficit. And so economists were saying a recession is coming, and then the pandemic hit, and boy, did it come. So the Democrats since 2001 have been inheriting these really crummy economies from Republican leadership and expected to just sort of turn this tanker around.
Wait a minute. You are saying a crummy economy existed, but the crummy economy, if Trump had tried to keep the economy running, what would folks on the left would have said? He's killing people. George, he cares more about money. He wants to kill people.
Here are some facts.
Guys,
in 2001, we had the greatest economic crisis since the Great Depression. Obama came in, ended the recession, and then we had the longest bull market in American history.
Courtney,
Trump came in, toilet, and President Biden is expected to just turn it around.
You're ignoring the COVID issue. Secondly, and number two, what Biden, you blame Biden. I blame
the
Trump
economy was in the toilet, George. The cause of it is.
I blame Trump for an increase in the deficit, but Biden comes in, spends $4 trillion, and you're saying that didn't have an effect?
It didn't. He cut the deficit. He cut the deficit.
I tell you, we're going to have to wait and see how this one plays out. Obviously, this discussion can continue
George,
for
are you going to argue with facts?
Guys, we're going to stop you there.
I understand your facts, or you have alternative facts.
I don't have
we're going to wrap it up. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be talking about this. I have a feeling a whole lot more still ahead. That is for sure. But we'll continue. We're going to wrap it up for this week. Yeah, we got the votes coming. Voting is coming up on the 4th. We'll see you then. Of course, we'll be talking more of you guys about that at that time. All right, now I got our messages across. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on Tennessee This Week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.